Hey guys, so today we are going to be just reviewing how to punctuate each of these different types of sentences. We've already talked about compound sentences a little bit, but we haven't talked just about what to do with our complex sentences and compound complex sentences. So let's start with complex sentences. So there are basically two rules for complex sentences and what to do with the commas that go in them. So if the dependent clause comes first, you must put a comma after it. So let's look at our example. Because we were tired, we went home early. So my dependent clause is this first one, because we were tired. Okay, so since it came first, I have to put this comma, all right there before I go into my independent clause. Now, if the dependent clause comes after the independent clause, you don't have to worry about adding any punctuation. All you have to worry about is if my dependent clause is first in the sentence, then I've got to put a comma before I start my independent clause. All right, now, compound sentences, just to review these that we've talked about, you must have a comma before the fanboys or a semicolon and no fanboys. So let's look at two compound sentences. So each of these has two independent clauses since it's a compound sentence. We have we went to the market and we bought milk. Now, since I have a fanboys here, this and, okay, I'm going to put a comma before it. All right, so if we combine two independent clauses using one of those fanboys words, we have to put a comma before it. Now, if I don't use a fanboys, we went to the market, semicolon, we bought milk. Okay, if I don't have a fanboys, I just put a semicolon in. Okay? All right, now, if it's compound complex, you just follow those same rules. Sometimes you just have to add more stuff. So, because we were tired, I started with the dependent clause, so I put a comma right after it, following our first rule up here. Okay? Now, then I had an independent clause. We went home early. And I joined it with a fanboys to my next independent clause. We went straight to bed. So I'm going to put another comma there. All right, now let's look down at some examples here. So we're going to do a couple things. One, we're going to identify the type of sentence. So whether it's simple, compound, complex, or compound complex. Okay, that's going to help us figure out what kind of punctuation rules we need to use. And then we're going to add any needed punctuation. Now, you might not necessarily need punctuation every time, so just be aware of that. All right, so number one, whenever I feel sad, I listen to my favorite music. All right, so I've got to figure out what type of sentence this is, so I've got to first figure out what clauses I have. So I see some subject-verb pairs, I feel, and I listen, so I know I've got two clauses. Let's look at my first one. Whenever I feel sad. So I start with this whenever, okay? So that sounds like it's going to be a dependent clause. So if I'm starting with a dependent clause, okay, that means I'm going to have to add a comma in. So everyone add in that comma. All right, and then I ended with an independent clause. So if I have a dependent clause and an independent clause, that means this is going to be complex. All right, now let's look at number two. Because it was raining outside, the students were very sleepy. So I got to find my clauses first. So I see a couple subject-verb pairs. It was and students were. So I know I've got two clauses. So let's look at my first one. Because it was rainy outside. So I'm starting with another one of those awubis words. So I know that this is a dependent clause. So that means I need to put a comma after it. Okay? So I've got a dependent clause plus an independent clause. So that's going to be another complex. All right, number three. We went to lunch in a limo because we participated in the fundraiser. So let's look for my clauses. I see we went and we participated. So I know I've got two clauses. We went to lunch in a limo. That seems like an independent clause. I could just have ended there and it would be a complete thought. Because we participated in the fundraiser, though, I'm starting with that awubis word. So that looks like it's going to be a dependent clause. So I've got an independent plus a dependent. That makes it a complex sentence. However, I don't need to add any punctuation here because I didn't start with my dependent clause. So remember, you only add the comma when you start with the dependent clause. All right, let's see number four. I'm excited for the next school dance. It will be a Valentine's dance. So looking for my clauses first, I see I'm excited and it will be. So I know I've got two clauses, Okay. I'm excited for the next school dance. That's independent. That could stand by itself as a sentence. It will be a Valentine's dance. Same thing, also independent, could also be a sentence. So I'm going to say that's compound because I've got 2 independent clauses. And I don't have a fanboys here, so that means I need to add a semicolon in between my 2 independent clauses. All right, now let's look at number 5. This is the last one we're going to do together. I went to the mall and I bought a new outfit for Christmas. So I see I went and I bought. So I know I've got 2 clauses. I went to the mall. That looks independent. I could just say I went to the mall and that could stand alone. I bought a new outfit for Christmas. Also independent. If you just said to your friend, I bought a new outfit for Christmas, they'd be like, oh, okay. You didn't leave them hanging at all. So I've got a fanboys in the middle and, so that means I need to add a comma before it. And that one is also compound. All right, so you're going to do 6 through 10 on your own, and then we'll check that first thing tomorrow, then do a little bit more practice as a class to make sure we all get it. And let me know if you have any questions then.